you're watching Trade of the Week, I'm Zinati Mind. Up for technical analysis this week, the JSE's clicks Thungela and Discovery, and bringing us his analysis of those stocks is Petri Redelinghuys, founder of Herenya Capital. Thank you so much for your time, Petri. Quite interesting ones and actually quite diverse across the board, the stocks that we are looking at today. Are you looking to buy into these stocks?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that it's also quite interesting that they are so broad. I didn't really think about that until you mentioned it, but it just feels as though the market is on a relatively broad base.
Yeah.
Doing pretty well.
Okay.
There's been a lot of interest in our market if you look at relative performance, and this is something we've spoken about in the past, about how our market has underperformed compared to other developed markets, particularly the US and so on, for almost a decade. And that trend might begin to reverse. And if you look at recent performance, our market is pushing new all-time highs almost every week, and the US market has not been, well, the US market is starting to catch a move now, and that's pushing us even more, right? So we've been really performing relatively well.
Okay.
And we had a little bit of bearishness, or quite a bit of bearishness earlier this year, but it seems as though that's sort of mostly worked its way out, and the market is starting to bounce a bit now.
And actually, really, it seems like this is not just even a market thing. Like, fundamentally, these stocks have actually been producing quite good numbers. So is this a case of the fundamentals working with the technicals?
Well, I think it's a case of the local economy actually starting to recover in an environment where we managed to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It's like a little thing that we all think, oh, okay, the lights are back. We kind of take it for granted. But, for small businesses, margins improved massively, or small businesses, big businesses, margins improved massively because you don't have to run that diesel generator 24 hours a day anymore. So that makes a big, big difference and in terms of consumer confidence. We go out and we spend again because there's a little bit of less pressure. Interest rates are coming down. Look, obviously, this is the political circus that always happens, and there's always reasons to be panicking about something.
Yeah.
But on the ground, I feel that it's starting to look a bit better.
Okay. Well, let's talk about clicks, because this is actually one that I feel like, I don't know if there aren't a lot of opportunities to get into the stock, because a lot of the time it's considered quite expensive, quite a mature company, but you're seeing opportunity here. What is that technical picture looking like?
Well, okay, I think that you hit the nail on the head there. Technical picture, right? So from a fundamental perspective, we can argue about, yes, it's overpriced, yes, the P is very high, yes, it's very mature, all that kind of stuff. But from a technical picture, if we look at the chart here, we see a nice uptrend, right? So if we look at the last 1 year's worth of data, the market is very clearly moving higher. And if we look a little bit further back, which is kind of where I prefer to look at, we can see a very strongly established upward moving trend. Now, yes, there are times of difficulty, and I'll mark them out here. So this period, for example, is very difficult to navigate through and remain bullish on. But we've had a very strong push out of this area into what looks to me at least like a bit of a bull flag situation. So we've got a nice little flagpole up here, little downward consolidating trend, or a pullback in a sort of a tertiary trend, if you will. We've hit this previous high. I'll just mark this level here.
Okay.
We've hit this sort of previous high level resistance level. We had a bit of a pullback from there, and it looks as though, at least from a moving averages perspective, we've got a bit of a bullish crossover once again. We've got price moving out, breaking through this flag. I think we probably break through 404 and print new highs on the stock relatively soon. So for us, this looks like a relatively decent long entry into to initiate a new long position here.
Okay.
I just want to see if I've got a...
It's actually quite interesting when you look at that chart from a long-term perspective, because it really does give you a kind of a perspective.
Gives you a bit of perspective, yeah. And we can also see, like, from a momentum perspective, we can see that momentum here is a stochastic oscillator at the bottom. A 1433 for those who want to know the parameters. Then essentially we just see a bit of movement up here. I mean, we'd be really convinced that this is the beginning of a real move once we're up through the 50 level. But for now, it looks like we've got a very strong preliminary kind of entry point into taking a long trade here. So you could basically take this trade here. I'll put it on. I know that some guys enjoy when you do this. So you put a stop loss sort of below the lows here.
Oh, okay, so that's where the stop loss would be.
So your stop loss would be below these recent lows here.
Right.
Take this magnet off. It can be a bit annoying sometimes.
Okay.
So yeah, that low over there would be your area where you want to kind of stop below that area. You don't necessarily want to go, exactly on that level. It might push a bit through. So we could stop there, and you could potentially, the real way of measuring this thing would be to take to measure the flagpole. So we kind of measure this move in. Put that there, and then we kind of project that out as a potential move higher, right?
Okay.
So we have.
So best case scenario.
So best case scenario, we see a 15% rally, which gives us a 1 to 4 risk reward ratio if we take a long trade here. So that to me, I mean, look, shorter term trading using CFDs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, fundamentals play a very big role. Yeah. Obviously, you don't want to be going long in stocks.
Yes, that are not performing.
That are not, well, not necessarily not performing, but like dark clouds are covering over them. Sasol is a good example. It's had a lot of trouble. Those trouble seems to be coming out the way now, and look, it's rallied massively in the last few days, right? But you want to make sure that the stuff that you're trading in has an upward trajectory, has a solid sort of fundamental basis. But essentially, we're just following trends, right? So we're looking for a good high probability entry point where we can get, if we get it wrong, we lose 1 rand. If we get it right, we make 4. So that's a good setup in our view, or that's kind of shorter term, higher risk trading, if you will. And this seems to be a relatively good setup for a decent entry point into that.
All right. Well, let's look at, before we go into the commodity space, let's look at, I guess, another consumer-focused stock, and that is Discovery. I don't know, Discovery's been a very interesting one from a period where investors were quite uncertain about the company, but seeming that we've had a lot of bullishness and optimism into the company fundamentally. But technically, what has it looked like?
Well, also, I just also want to mention that it's almost died down now.
That
the
optimism.
Hype around how much money they were burning every year on starting a bank.
Yeah.
And suddenly nobody's talking about that anymore. So
absolutely no.
Give it a little bit of time, and that bank is going to be making some profit. So that's going to be something big that's on the horizon, at least for us. But essentially, what we have here again is, if we just take a trend perspective here, this was all the way back in 2022. We had a little bit of a bad time. So let's say so it's 2023. We start there. We're looking at basically a year and a half. Trend is very solidly up here, right? And if we do have that same basis as a backdrop that our economy is going to perform relatively well, given the the macro environment or the global environment, I think that we have a relatively good spot to get in here. What we have here as well is quite a strong level that we've seen that this stock was it managed to get above this level once in the past. Over here, didn't quite manage to do that. Do we have the same situation? We've got another fake breakout. So that was the first one. Is this another fake break that we're breaking out here? Or is this kind of the break to run away? So our view is that this is probably the break to run away. So on this break, full disclosure, we were short this stock from this 210 Rand level. Our short trade has failed, right? And it's now given a very clear sort of long breakout signal, if you will. So you could probably take this as a long trade, and you would stop, below this little consolidation here. Maybe say $200 below 200 Rand would be a very wide stop, and just let it run essentially. So this is a pure trend following thing. It's very hard to set a target to something like this.
This is just because I was going to ask how much upside or best case scenario we could see in this one.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. This is it's just kind of like, this is a similar situation here where you have a significant resistance level that eventually gets broken, and it just trends up and up and up for some time, right? So I think that we have the same thing here where we've got a relatively significant resistance level that probably coincides with something if you go further back. I was looking like this is probably breaking up into record high territory here, actually. Breaking through that level, I think is a relatively good spot to take along.
And for long, why specifically long?
Well, I mean, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to follow the trend, right? Particularly if you look at a stock that's like breaking into record high territory, there's no, there's uncharted space. So, so from a trading perspective, right? There's sort of a mindset. Like, what do you do with a stock that's up 10% on the day? Will you buy it? Right now, it sounds silly because everybody thinks, it's already up 10%.
So why?
It's gone too much, kind of thing. But what we really want to do is we want to buy the winners. So if the things are making record highs in a market that's making record highs, these are the strongest stocks in the market if they're pushing new highs. So those are the ones that we want to be in.
That's a very, very interesting take on it. Well, do you want to be in coal? Why?
Because I like energy, and I think that going green is not going so well. And also, I mean, I think this is a stock that we've spoken about some time ago. I think we spoke about buying it in this block the last time that we spoke about it on the show, actually. It looked like it had a bit of a breakout here at the beginning and kind of fell right back down to these lows, and it seems as though we are once again repeating the situation where we have a bit of a breakout. I just want to zoom in a little bit more here. We can't really see this so well because of the color scheme, so let's see if I can change that a little bit. I'll make that blue line white.
Yeah. Would you say that there's a very clear support level there at the bottom?
Yeah. So obviously there's a relatively clear support level. I'll just do that for ease of reference. So that orange line and that white line are like on the verge of crossing. Now we were pretty close there the last time. It didn't quite happen. We're happening there. We're pretty close to that crossing again as well. So that is kind of like, if you look at how this is a good indicator of trend, right? So as long as orange stays above yellow or orange stays above white, we're in a downtrend situation. If we go back in history, when we see those two switch over, that moving average crossover happens, we've got this nice long upward trajectory until they cross.
All right.
Right? So we're essentially in a situation where this downtrend is coming to an end. We might see that moving average sort of crossover taking place as a nice indication of what the trend is.
Okay.
And we can then kind of put that trend line there as well to say that once we break up through that and we break out of this nice little blue block that we have drawn here, we are in a situation where this trend could potentially be changing. Now, if you compare this stock to the others, they were all in uptrends over the last year and a half, 2 years.
Yes.
As where Thungela is not, right? I mean, that's very firmly a solid downtrend.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because the narrative there was buy the winners with Thungela.
And here we are buying the loser, right? Yeah, so mean reversion trade, let's call it that way.
Yes.
So I mean, you can buy two winners and want to take a gamble on something tricky, right? I just look at the situation and I think that we look at it, we're living in a world where everybody's trying to, and this has been our thesis for a long time, and this is why we've hung on to Sasol for as long as we have, right? And you know, now the thing is starting to come alive again, so we're still a bit underwater, but hopefully, you know, this thing can really add value to our managed portfolios in the coming years, which I think it will.
Yeah.
But the view is really just that, you know, good old-fashioned traditional energy, coal, oil, these things are not going away. If we look at the energy mix as new technologies come out over the years, old technologies don't disappear. New technologies come in and supplement additional energy, but don't remove that baseload energy requirement that we have. The only thing really that challenges coal and oil is nuclear energy. So I do think that is in something that is absolutely going to happen in the future, but I mean that's 20 years from now. Right? Until then, yes, there will be some advances in stuff. Hydrogen maybe stands a good chance, but until then, I think we're going to need coal, we're going to need oil, and I think you know, Thungela is well positioned for that.
Listen, you've stuck to your guns on this energy trade. You do also have like uranium in your portfolio. I'm quite surprised with Sasol. I should have actually said you must add Sasol today, but maybe we can talk about it next time. It would be quite interesting because, it's done some very, very interesting things.
we can quickly look at that.
Okay, maybe quickly. Maybe quickly.
Like 2 seconds.
Yeah, maybe quickly.
So this is our sort of Sasol chart primarily. I'm just going to put this. Make that.
That's a very interesting, because I think a lot of people have just been looking at it fundamentally. But I guess from even what we got last week, there seems to be kind of fundamental optimism back into the stock. Yeah,
I mean, that markets day was relatively significant. Now, some people, depending on, you know, orientation and all that kind of stuff, and whether they think that Sasol is terrible for the planet or good for the portfolio, tends to, you know, determine the outlook. You know, some people saying like, oh, you know, it's helpful to be your own regulator, if you will. Other people saying, well, me being other people saying, look, we've had a management team that's really dropped the ball on things for a very long time. And if we start looking at the way that they've kind of come out and said, look, these are the things we have put in place to turn the ship around. That is starting to happen. We're starting to see revenue pick up. We're starting to see the emissions situation, you know, come out. Government even sort of throwing in a bit of support there. So like, cool, we understand we'll do this in our time rather than other people's timelines. And if we look at what's happened just over the last little while, I mean, that is a 25% rally, right?
Yeah,
and that's just from the 16th. That's over the last 10 days. So it's like 2 weeks. It's run. It's run 25%.
Yeah,
it's absolutely massive, right?
It's been continuing,
if we have a situation here, which we think we might, again, you know, it's not the first time that we're attempting to break the downtrend. But it is at least the most recent time that we're attempting to break the downtrend, and perhaps here this is, you know, this is an opportunity to get in. I think. Full disclosure, what we've been doing as well is we've been sort of trading in and out of the stock to try and lower our average price. When we first got involved with the stock around 150,
and a lot of people have actually been doing that.
Yeah, it's a long way up from now. So we've managed to get our average price down to about 100 Rand.
Okay.
Just under 99.75 or whatever.
All right.
And that's just from actively kind of trading in the stock, and buying and selling as we get opportunities.
Okay.
So we're almost at a position now where if this thing really starts moving, I think we're going to be smiling very.
Petri, that's a very, very good strategy, because a lot of people have been in the stock and just sitting. So it's actually quite interesting to know that while you are waiting, you can be doing something while you are waiting.
You can be doing short-term trading. Yeah. So, and you can also, you know, from a strategy perspective, you can make use of different trading instruments.
Yes.
So, for example, you could be long a stock on equity, but be trading it in the short term, taking short-term opportunities, like some of the things we're looking at with Clicks and Discovery, for example. I could be holding Discovery as a long-term fundamental equity play, but I could be shorting it and trading it long and short, whatever, with a CFD.
All right.
You know, on the side. These things don't necessarily have to be. You can separate that. I have a long-term view that over the next 10 years I'm going to do well here, but in the short term I can still trade.
Doesn't have to be black and white.
Opportunities where I see them.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that very, very insightful analysis, Petri. Really, really appreciate it. That was Herenya Capital's Petri Redelinghuys. And that's all for this week's segment, but stay tuned for lots more coming up right here on Business Day TV.